Windsor work session for December 19th, 2022 to order. First item under the agenda, approval of minutes from the November 21st, 2022 work session meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion for approval?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes for the work session for November.
Second.
And a second. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from the November 21st, 2022 work session meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, so carried. Deputy Calusi recognition and Deputy McGinnis introduction. Guess we're going to put that off till January, which what I thought anyway. So.
You might just, I had a conversation with Deputy Calusi today, and you might want to just call him before, way before.
Okay. All right. We've been talking.
I know, but there's some things he's concerned about. So.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Rental housing application review and discussions. Everybody had a chance to look at it one more time?
Yep.
I did. Joan, any comments, questions, anything you need stronger?
Is it wrong of us to ask for the residents' information?
It's problematic.
Okay.
I advise against doing it.
Okay, well, even if we can't do that, then me just having the direct contact property owner info is gonna make a huge difference.
Yeah, there are privacy rights, in addition to which, just the practical, especially if you've got a 6-month tenant,
Yeah.
they're moving out, they're moving in, or somebody is evicted and it's a 4-month,
Well,
and
that's kinda
what
like
do
the
they have to come back and do?
I've got now. So she's like on top of her rental property, and she's trying to evict someone, and they're trying to say that her property is a registered rental property. And I said, well, as of currently, you know, there's nothing even in the county that states she has to register it anywhere. So, I told her I would just send this along once this got approved, which is fine.
So I do have some questions.
Okay.
Under the fees, where it talks about our records indicate the property is a residence, blah, 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 and it talks about the rental license fee is $20 per unit if paid prior to July 1st, and then it escalates up. The fee structure, when they're due, is it tied? I don't understand what it's tied to. And then, let me finish the whole thing, because then it will roll in. And then I don't understand where we say rental license fees paid after September 1st are subject to a higher charge after it escalates, because that's kind of nebulous. What does that mean? Are we going to hit them with $1,000? And then what's our stick? Well, I don't want to call it a stick, but
If we don't.
But
Yeah.
what is the penalty for not paying? So that's my first set of questions, so I don't know what you were thinking there.
So that's also kind of why I'm here, because I'd rather speak freely amongst you all instead of having, you know, the people, the residents that live here question me and me not know. So a lot of the ordinances like this in the code don't really have a stick structure, if that makes sense. So, and I spoke to Deputy Calusi about it as well. So when we're enforcing the town code, at the end of the day, if it were to go to the court system, it's a civil matter. So you address that completely different than if the county were to come over, they can turn it into a civil matter, which makes it civil or criminal. It's the different elements of the court. So we don't really have that type of structure. We don't have violation booklets that are authorized with the county. We don't have the proper stickers that we need that the code states in order for me to even send a letter and saying I have to put an orange sticker, and nobody's ever seen an orange sticker in this office. You know what I mean? That's kind of why I haven't sent out letters or notified anyone of violations, because I'm still trying to work all that out. And it's not going to be a timely thing. So I don't know is my answer to you, because that's all I know is what it says in the form that I found.
All right, so let's drop back and punt then.
Okay.
Michelle,
I have a couple of thoughts on this, and I've had a couple of these same thoughts from our prior town clerk, and I discussed these. She liked the idea of an escalating scale. I think an escalating scale is problematic. I think you tell people, July 1, beginning of the fiscal year, everything is, pick one, it really doesn't even matter, January, July, whatever's easiest
Just
for our
our
bookkeeping.
calendar, yeah.
This is when they're due. You might want to put in a late fee, but this $20 in July and $30 in August, and then by December, it's $82.50. I just think it's confusing to people.
It sounds like an administrative peanut, you know what.
It sounds like an administrative problem.
Royally,
Right.
she's gonna start hating me. So
You're,
I
you're,
don't do that.
yeah, we all want everybody who runs the place to not hate us. That's our goal. Insofar as sticks are concerned, the only stick really in the rental housing issue is the ability to vacate a rental housing license, in which case they would be the owner of the property who continues to rent if he doesn't have a license is in violation, which gets us into that municipal citation issue Joan was
But
just
there's
talking about.
nothing in the county code.
The county
that
code
states
is,
It's a violation.
county code is not relevant here.
Right, so then it ends with us, and
Yeah,
it's like.
we are the only
have
game in
to
town
work
for
hard.
this.
Yeah, so.
So you'd have to go, if it was a
Yeah,
really bad.
if
you'd have-
it has to go to
You'd have to
court,
go to
The
court. court.
town would have to take it.
I take it.
Michelle would have to.
Every
take
once in a blue moon, the state's attorney's office will, but by and large, they got more important things, or scratch that. They've got their own things
Yeah,
to take care of, so we do it, and I've done it before. We had one many years ago, during the Mummer years, that's how long ago it was, where
the
we,
fees are so small, like,
yeah, well, fees small is a problem, but that is not entirely of our doing, because some of those are state limits.
right.
But I don't know anything about orange stickers. That's news to me. So I don't know. I'll
It
have
has
to talk
do
about that.
with
But
the article on parking and, abandoned vehicles and stuff like that. But it strictly says I can't even mail a town marked letter without putting a sticker on the vehicle first, giving them fair notice. And, we would just have to go through it as a town through a printing company to get those.
no, we just have to change
Or
that
we could
statute. That
amend-
doesn't make any
That's what I was
sense.
gonna say, or we could amend the statute,
Yeah.
so.
But insofar as houses are concerned, just this,
Yes.
I think that the ordinance requiring this is in place and has been. But we never really have done the enforcement for several reasons. COVID reasons, other personnel matters, all of those things. So it is my opinion, for whatever that's worth, is that when we nail down what the fee is and how you're going to structure that, is at that point you do an education campaign with your landlords and say, come whatever date, March, maybe even July. I mean, that's an administrative decision. This is what you're going to have to do. The forms are available. You need to come in, blah, 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 blah. And we know who most of these people are. There's probably a very small number of folks we don't know. But by and large, we know who they are. And start that process then. And if they don't, then we have to come after them as being unregistered property renters, landlords, unregistered landlords. And that would be a municipal citation under the code, the way I believe it is written now, under this section of the code.
Right, which we don't really have municipal citations.
Yeah, we do. Well, you don't need a book. I've gone through this so many times.
Well,
You-
Deputy Calusi told me whatever was on the.
Deputy Calusi likes a book, and a lot of people have a book and like a book, but you don't need a book. We write a citation on a plain old piece of typewriter paper. Does anybody know what I'm talking about when I say typewriter paper? You know, printer paper. And you have to, I mean, there are things you have to say on it. The state
Right.
statute does require what has to be said, but it doesn't need a book. Now, he, with what he does, maybe for giving traffic tickets or something, has to have a book. But we found some books. I think Donna found like a book that was revised in, 1977 on the bottom of it, the way those forms will say.
The people
So
in this room are
forget the book.
born in-
Okay.
But we do have formats for letters.
Okay.
And, what was her name? Nicole, I thought she had some, so there's probably some floating around in here. But
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
something easy enough to deal with.
Working on it.
Yeah.
But back to Dave's point, if somebody doesn't pay the $20,
then you have to cite them for being an unlicensed landlord.
And then,
And then that if they don't have, then that's a municipal citation, and you have to go through that process. You have to give them notice that says you're renting in violation of chapter XYZ, here's your this is what you have to do to cure it. All the things that the state statutes say have to go in a municipal citation, and they have two choices. They can pay $20 a day if they want, because it's every day that you're in violation is a new fine, which is, they're not going to do. They can go to court, they can appeal to the district court, in which case we have to go to the district court and explain to a district court judge, here's the ordinance, here's what they haven't done, here's everything we've done that before. Thankfully, we don't have to do it very often, but we have done it. And the court can cite them for up to $1,000. We can't, but the court can, under the state statute.
and then that goes to, that $1,000 goes to,
That I do not know the answer to. I know traffic stuff goes to the state, but I tend to think that municipal citations go directly to us.
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever seen one fund that,
But,
honestly.
I mean, the only thing that this reminds me of is the nuisance house.
Yeah.
And for the most part with that, we might have people kind of drag their feet, but eventually they become compliant.
Eventually, they become.
So I think that we're probably gonna have the same experience
Yeah.
with
And
this.
sure you
I
are.
agree with you.
Yeah.
Probably take,
Every property owner I've spoken to rental-wise, whether it be a complaint or anything, up to date, has been very compliant. I don't
Yeah.
foresee it being an issue.
I think it's, I mean, just
Especially
quickly
if
an
you
aside, I
keep
think
these
it's been helpful.
Small, like that. I mean,
Yeah.
Dean Pennington's gonna be one of the guys that pays the most, because he has the most rental properties in town.
Right.
If we keep the fees small, I don't think it'll be a complaint. And then if we tell them, the history behind being able to be in contact with them in reference to the property, I think they'll support it.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a punitive thing, it's a helpful thing.
can't say it.
So for this code though, is something that we should change that it's $20 with a late fee and maybe a citation?
I
It
think
doesn't
that
have
we
to
should-
go in the code.
No,
The
But-
fee has to be
He
adopted
means
by
on the
you.
form.
But currently on the form, it says that you will be charged 30 if it's August, 50 if it's September,
No, I
or,
think
This form has never gone out to anybody, to the best of my knowledge.
No, nobody's
Then-
seen it.
Yeah.
We can
Change
amend
it to just-
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
remove that.
still a work in progress.
It is confusing. I say, we pick a date,
I think July 1st, because that's our fiscal
a
year.
fiscal year,
Yeah.
by July 1st. If it's not paid within 6 months, a late fee of something will be assessed.
30 days.
30
days,
days.
30 days. Don't, you can't give these people 6 months.
and our code already has a standard late
Yeah,
fee.
yeah. It's all,
But it's different per section. I've noticed.
we don't
That
have
we should
one
change then.
universal, and that is something that we've talked about doing.
But
But
at least
that
then it's
always
cleaner
doesn't-
on the form.
And,
Always fair.
Yeah,
there's
that
always an
is
exception
confusing,
that
so
stops it.
I'm looking at amending that.
All right, so can we decide, is July 1st the date that we feel, okay, July 1st? And how about, what do we think the fee should be, the
I think
initial fee?
$20 is
Is
fine.
$20 fine? We're not
Per
trying-
unit.
Yeah,
Per
Okay.
unit.
yeah.
Per unit, all right.
Per unit
So
or
if they
per
have 4
property?
years.
That's the
You
only,
want
I
it to be
mean,
the unit, because some of these places have.
some places have
Some
8
of them are
units.
bottom apartments and top apartments and only register as one property for the SDAT, the state.
But there's still only one property for SDAT, but they are 2 units for a license.
just like 2 users for water
I
and
mean,
sewer.
Yeah.
we couldn't penalize the whole building because there was people on the top floor being a nuisance. If it was the nuisance ordinance, you're gonna
Yeah.
deal with the actual
You have to deal with
unit.
them as individual
Yeah,
units.
so $20 per unit on July 1st, and then a late fee in 30
30-day late
days.
fee, and what does it go to? The late fee, does it go to $50 a unit if they're late?
You want to make it enough that they're going to pay their 20.
Yeah, 50 is a little bit.
But that's just my opinion. This is y'all's call.
I think 50 is fair. $20 is nothing.
$20 is nothing. It barely covers your administrative cost, but more than doubling it gets people to pay the 20.
$20 isn't even $2 a month.
Exactly.
You know.
It's a deal.
Really, that's so cheap.
All right, so $50 late fee? is
I'm in
it-
favor of 50, it
think
doubles the
50 is
whole,
good.
the fee,
Per
more
unit,
than doubles
right?
it.
Per unit.
Unit.
Yeah.
Yeah, that adds up.
And that's after July 1st, right?
Okay, so that takes care of that.
So $50 late fee until what? What if they don't pay it within 30 days, and then $50 a day every day after that?
What do you, Michelle?
What, Michelle, how does
I
the?
don't remember exactly how that section is worded for the every day is a separate violation. But I just don't remember, but I'm pretty sure it's in there, and I apologize, I don't have that.
Pretty sure, at least for the nuisance, we had it
I,
where.
for
it was
well,
every
for
day.
almost everything, every day is a separate violation.
I like consistency, so if
What I don't remember is if there is something specific about not paying, other than pulling it if they're in violation, but if they haven't paid, they haven't got one. So I don't know. I would have to go back and look. I'm sorry.
Okay, but we do have a process that would kick in
Oh, yeah.
at this late fee time.
Yeah, we'll have a process.
Yeah, I'd keep track after that.
And I think, like so many things, once this is set up in a system, it's not like you're talking Manhattan here, you know,
Right.
there's a limited number of units
Right.
in New Windsor that are gonna be for rent. So it probably will become easier to monitor after we get it set up.
My other questions revolved around, I think, something that Joan already said. You said we should not ask for tenant information.
I think there are
And-
serious legal privacy issues with doing that.
Okay, because that's where my other questions revolved around. So I guess my only concern about that is then if we had an issue, a safety issue or something like that with that property, we would not be able to necessarily contact the renter themselves. We would only be able to contact the property owner.
Owner or whoever is
That's
the
not
property
true,
owner's
because the codes-
designee.
That's not true because the code states that both are held equally liable.
But we won't know exactly,
But we won't
both
know
are
who
liable,
it is,
but
but
we
you're
don't
notified.
necessarily know that Harriet Nussbaum is renting unit 2C.
Right, right.
I mean, we've had situations where water was pouring out of a unit, right? And we didn't know who was living in that unit, and we have to call a property owner who may or may not be in New Windsor or in the state of Maryland.
But that's why you want a property designee within 50 miles.
Okay,
Now, that's what the ordinance says now, 50 miles. Now, I mean, that's in there already. The question is, since we're talking about it, is 50 miles too far? Or is 50 miles
I mean,
completely
then-
appropriate?
well, 50 miles is Baltimore, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
that-
not that far.
It's not that far, and if you start designating if it has to be 5-10 miles, and then you really limit the scope.
Yeah, and that is, it's just, you know, if we're looking at a global review of what we got,
I've
it says
never
50
read that
miles.
in the code.
It's, I'm sure it's in
No, I'm saying, which section?
the rental housing section.
In the rental housing.
Yeah.
All right, so that was my concern about not knowing the renters having their contact information, a name and a phone number. If it's a privacy issue, then that's just something that we would have to deal with if
Right.
Yeah.
something came up.
If I come into contact with the renters after the property is registered and I become aware, legally by normal contact, then I can put it in a spreadsheet, the renters that I know that live there currently, but asking them to provide that information. I think is
Yeah, I think that's fine, because you've had direct contact.
Right.
And from an administrative standpoint, they change. A lot of, these
Well,
are
you know,
not necessarily long-term
With the
tenants.
water and sewer billing, do you have a good idea of renters?
Of who they are,
Well, just of the amount, the total.
of the amount,
Of units.
yeah, I know the number of units, yes.
Probably about
But it-
75 or more?
Top of my head,
Not putting you on the spot.
No, I mean, I know at one time, John Connell had about 60 units. Yeah.
Well,
So,
the lady
She's
I just
adding.
talked to, 107 High, she has 6 alone in that one building, so.
I mean, some of these have 8 or 10 units in
Yeah,
them.
Right.
it could get up there.
well, there's one that has 6, and that one has, yeah. And then, I don't know on the top of my head, I mean, I could get you that number, I just don't know right now.
And then on top of that, do you have any information from the newsletters of how, contact information?
I only have had a couple of people, I would say maybe about 3 or 4 of the renters contact me to get the newsletter.
That are long-term?
Some of them have gone. I know 2 of them that are still here, but
Would it be beneficial to put optional information on renters? Not requiring it, but just making it optional.
That would lessen some of my concern. I don't know that it helps the staff any for the changes, but that might be something that you want to try and see how it works out.
I mean, you know, you say 50 miles, but that doesn't mean they're going to be here.
Oh, yeah, I mean,
You
that's
almost
assuming
ought to
that
put
whoever they
a
are.
time that
And-
someone can be here within 30 minutes or 1 hour. 1 hour, I think, would be good. But just say if somebody's within a 50-mile radius doesn't mean.
No, it
But they're
doesn't
gonna
mean they can
respond
be here. I
either.
mean, of course, that's true for somebody in a 5-mile radius if the 5-mile radius
Right.
person has gone to New Hampshire for Christmas.
Right.
I was thinking of it more like the landlord or the designee would know how to get in touch with the tenants, whereas we would not.
Right.
But the only other thing I think about is, again, back with the privacy. Let's say I rented and now I move out 6 months later and there's a flood, and now Joan's calling me and saying, do you know that there's a flood in your apartment? I'm like, what are you talking about? You
Yeah.
know, I'm right here, there's no
I'm
flood.
sitting here.
So, you know, that's, you know, I mean, it's the landlord's responsibility to be able to get in touch with his or her tenants.
I will tell you, there is a couple of landlords who do give me tenant information because they want the water bill in the tenant's name.
Yeah.
That they do.
Yes, I bet they do.
I bet they do.
That's the
I
exact same
bet you
thing,
get it that
sorry.
same day.
But I mean, it's only just a few.
Well, then, you know, I think perhaps if you wanted to make it optional,
There could even be, we could even design a whole other attached form, you know, that they make.
It wasn't part of this actual record, like just a
Right,
separate.
if somebody were to leave the property, you know, how long is their lease for? You could get into numerous things. But right now, with what I'm dealing with from just off the top, before digging really deep, if I just have every rental property's owner's information, that's gonna make a world of difference
Huge.
for me, so I'm
Yeah.
happy with just
So
that.
the changes we
Before
talked
dig,
about,
keep
right?
digging into something we
Yeah.
might not even need, you know?
before we make a whole lot more work for
Right,
ourselves.
exactly.
Yeah.
This
If
is
it-
gonna make a world of difference for me just off the bat, so,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm good with that. Start small.
What about also drafting a letter explaining why we're doing this? Instead of this just sounds like it's a
Oh, I think that's an
Yeah, that's
excellent
what we
idea.
money generator.
Michelle was saying, like,
Yeah,
have a little,
I think you need a
couple
little
of
bit of, and
information
if you know
sessions.
who, for those that you know who they are,
Right.
like the Pennington Estate, we know what those properties are.
And some of these pay
You know.
in other municipalities too.
Oh,
So
yeah.
it's not
Yeah.
brand new to them.
Yeah, and I think putting it in the newsletter, putting it on the Facebook, even if what you say is, you know, we're going to begin to actively institute this program, information is available at town
We
hall.
could record a
or-
video of Michelle, Joan explaining it.
Oh, okay, good, not me.
And then, and
No
then-
video.
or
I
the,
did not sign up to go.
or the two of you, or the mayor.
Doesn't matter.
We could
But-
put it on our website so
But
people
al-
can just look at it.
also, we're gonna have, you know, depending on the final product, at least 4 to 5 months
Oh, yeah.
notification
Yeah.
before there's any penalty.
And I think your point is very well taken. This is not a new, I mean, Westminster does it, Hampstead does it, Manchester does it. I believe Union Bridge does it.
Yeah, and I think
Yeah,
some,
she said the last property owner I talked to said she has properties in other towns that do something similar.
Mm.
But she's evicting this person actively and wanted to make sure her bases were covered here, so.
So one question I did have though is on section 4, the lead poisoning prevention requirements.
Yes.
Is there a reason why we're checking that?
Because the state law requires you to. You will recall, we talked about that a little bit at the last meeting, and Wayne was concerned about that.
Yes.
So I went back and actually in the local government article, there is a requirement that if if a municipality or a county licenses rental residences, We are not allowed to license a rental residence unless we have a written statement from the owner that they are compliant with these requirements.
And does that put us on?
It doesn't, I don't believe it gives us any enforcement responsibility.
Because that's what I was
Yeah,
worried
that's
about,
the concern.
liability, if we are acknowledging that they do have it and for
Well,
something happens.
they are acknowledging
Yeah. Which
that
is
they have it.
proof.
And that's, the statute is actually worded, a written statement by the owner.
Right.
No, so we don't have an investigation requirement other than to get said written statement. And
The owner saying, yes, I've done what I'm
yes,
supposed
I've done
to
it. So if the owner is lying to us,
Right.
That's
so
on
long
them.
as we have written proof that he's lying to us,
Right.
we should be fine.
Didn't we cover, I feel like maybe I'm experiencing a little bit of deja vu.
Deja vu
Didn't we
all
talk
over
about
again.
this before?
Yeah, we did.
Probably.
Yeah.
It was so long ago, most
You
of
might
it.
have been in high school.
We tend to revisit the same subjects frequently.
But.
Well, we're
what-
thorough.
What, two things. What is our responsibility if they don't have 1, 2, 3, or 4?
We can't license them.
Oh, we can't.
No, I think the state statute clearly
Okay,
prohibits us.
all right. But
I
do we
apologize
report
for
it?
this. It's either this or coughing.
Do we report it to someone?
I don't believe so. I think you just have to have it.
Okay?
I mean, I read that statute just this
No,
afternoon.
he's saying if they can't say, yes, I have this, and now we can't register them,
Doesn't make them in violation.
Well, if
There's
they
something
continue
we-
to rent, they're in violation. So if somebody comes in, and I imagine that this would probably be the circumstance, somebody who thinks he's gonna make some money by buying a flip house and he's gonna rent it. And you are gonna be among the many people who disabuse him of that notion when you say, oh, and by the way, we need this. And he says, what's this? And there's a website, there's everything else that he can go to and find out what he has to do. And we tell him, we cannot license you until you do this, but you really can't do this until you do this, because then you're in violation of a handful of state laws in the environment article. Yeah, no matter what you do, all day, every day, you're breaking some kind of law.
Straight from the lawyer.
she should know.
And I don't mean that to be flip,
Yeah,
but
no.
I think that's really, your only recourse is to send them on their way.
So then let me ask you this, just because my mind is thinking of all this work that I might have to do. What if I find a rental property being illegally rented?
Then we have to write him the letter of warning saying we have reason to believe you are being illegally, you're illegally renting. You have the opportunity to cure this by getting a license. And if you don't, we're gonna hit you with a violation of the requirement that you get a license to rent property. Just like you need a license to operate any other business. The philosophy behind all of this is that renting property is it's a business, and it's a business like any other business, and as a result, you need a license.
And then also down there where it says, I hereby certify and agree, should we also put in there the sentence where I have truthfully answered everything to the best of
Sure, we
my, or
can do that.
whatever,
Yeah, good idea.
That way, maybe it has a little bit more teeth if they, right now, they, almost like they can, I won't say get away with anything, but if we put that in there, that they've answered everything
And they sign
truthfully.
it.
It's like a number 2 lie, basically.
Yeah. Because once people say they're not lying, then they never lie. But no, we can make that change. I think that's not a bad idea.
Something, yeah.
Michelle, are there location requirements for resident agents for corporations? We talked about 50-mile radius here. Resident agent is basically.
Yeah, I know what a resident agent is. I mean, I'm not sure I know what you mean by
What about the post office?
location requirements. Or you generally need a physical address, I think, to be a
Correct, but I
resident
mean,
agent.
we were talking about the 50-mile radius from here. And I know that I had a resident agent, and I can't remember, my office was in Columbia, but the
You just
resident.
have to be in the state.
Okay, okay.
The state resident agency is you just have to be in the state.
So it could be 100 miles.
Yeah,
away.
yeah, you
Okay.
could be in Salisbury.
What about like the post office? That's a rental.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question.
Well, I mean, if something happens at the post office, that's a rented,
That's not a residence.
no, but it's a rental unit. Do we,
No, all this
That-
apply, all our statute
Just for
applies to
residents.
is residential
Okay.
units.
all right,
I mean, if
Rental housing, yes.
Mr. Garber decides to rent his, his station to, Harvey the mechanic, we don't care. I mean, there may be other entities that care, like, the
All right.
mechanics regulation unit or something, but we don't care. This is only for residential.
all right. Enough of it for you? Move forward?
Yeah.
It's not gonna be that bad.
Okay.
We made it
This
simpler.
is one.
Well, yeah, you got all kinds of other
Doing a good
problems.
job, Joan, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
Michelle, you good?
I'm good.
All
I think
right.
we'll, when Gary and I'll talk these few little things over, or Dana, or whenever, and we'll make these changes and
All right.
shoot them back around.
And also, when these start coming in, Colleen, it'll probably be pretty easy for you to verify that the billing for water and sewer is accurate, because there might be an apartment or two that, yeah, that are not being billed.
I'm just gonna put an Excel in the city folder, so you can have access to it.
Yes,
Great. All right,
If you find info, put it in there.
I will.
thank
I
you
feel
very
like we're gonna
much.
find one or two of those, by the
I
way.
think tomorrow I wrote it out.
That's all right. Thank you.
You guys have a good night. okay?
You too.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holiday, John.
Merry Christmas.
2022 road paving update. Gary?
Yeah, so can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah, a little louder maybe.
All right, so, CPE, paved Church Street segment segment 1A, which was from Lower Main to, High Street, December 7th through the 9th. The stone base, that they, uncovered was in very good condition, and there was no new graded aggregate base that was needed. And I put this spreadsheet together here for when we put this, each of the segments out to bid, and then just tracked it. So you see, based on our estimated cost and estimated quantities for this segment, the cost was the $89,732.05. And then you see the actual quantities for those dates that they put in and the cost, that came in at 67,177, which is a difference of the 22,515, under what we estimated for that section of road. And that's strictly because of the, no need for the graded aggregate base. It was in really good condition. So CPE will, return in the spring to continue paving on Church Street, and we'll see how that goes, and then possibly other planned roads as dependent on the HUR budget and the money our budget allows. So based on that condition of that base, hopefully the rest of the church is in that good a condition, and we can finish paving at least Church Street in the spring.
Questions for you, Gary.
Yeah.
In the contract, is there any room for them to charge more because of gas or anything?
I'll follow up with CPE. That's a good question, but I don't think there's going to be any increase with that. But I'll follow up with them. Knowing the way they operate, I'd be really surprised unless
Right.
something drastically changed. But I can follow up with them.
And I mean, it goes sky high. Their hands are kind of tied as well. But gas is going down right now, so hopefully that continues. But we I don't know, if anybody here knows, then they probably know the lottery numbers. But the one question I have here, I mean, this is great news that $22,000. But why was the one lower and the other one higher? Right, yeah.
You mean the quantities?
Well, I mean, the actual total was 6,000, 3-inch, but the 1.5 inch was less. One was less and one was more. You know, I mean, I'm glad it's, you know, way under anyway, but just.
Yeah, so when we set these quantities up, we can only really cross scale the square footage based on
Okay,
length
all
and
right.
width, and then we just use a standard calculation to determine the cubic yards. When
Okay.
they actually get in there and mill, it's based on the depth of the mill and the depth of the existing basically bituminous or blacktop that's there. We don't really know.
Gotcha. All right. Good job.
Yeah, it looks
Yeah,
great.
for that one anyway.
Yep.
Yep.
My concern is that Upper Church Street was done by another company than the lower part.
Right.
So hopefully, you know, we find the same, but you know, there's been a few places that have been patched in the past, and I'm hoping that that's not a bad sign, but just to let everybody know that was two companies that did Church Street when the county decided to give up county roads within the municipalities back in, I want to say like 83, 85, whatever it was. So hopefully it's a good thing to follow. That's a nice little saving on one piece of road. So, all right, good job, sir.
Thank you.
Continued use streaming option for council meetings, discussion. Will, you wanted this on there?
Yeah, so I put it on there because I know at the last meeting there was some discussion on if we were going to continue or not. So I figured it'd be a good time to discuss it. So we did, I did a little research, and so the Zoom is billed annually, May to May. So we are fully paid up till May. It's $12.42 a month for the Zoom. The Zoom offers not only the staff but also residents the ability to view the meeting, and most importantly, two-way communication, so we can talk to anyone remote and from. That's something that we don't get anywhere else. So I guess the discussion's open if what the thoughts are on to continue or to not continue.
I guess I'm confused because I thought one of the reasons we did this wonderful, soon to be wonderful audiovisual process was because we wanted to move to something, I mean, that's honestly probably more reliable and professional than Zoom. And I was kind of under the impression that we sort of started Zoom with COVID, and then we were like, oh, this is great because people can see the meetings. And I know it is because people tell me all the time that they don't have time to come or even watch it live, but they'll go back and watch the recording of it on the YouTube or through the media center. So I know I just kind of thought we were going to, like, I mean, we paid for it, so, you know, but I'd like to hear what everybody else thinks too. But I kind of thought that was.
I think Zoom is done. It should be over. I checked with other municipalities. Nobody's using Zoom. And everybody is in town hall for meetings. So I think Zoom is, we're going to have live streaming. You can watch it later whenever you want. I don't think there's been that many residents in a year and a half or even more that have weighed in. No one else is allowing them to come in. I think it could be very dysfunctional if we had a lot of people making comments on Zoom, and you know, Hampstead, someone has a question or comment, there's a call town hall the next day and get their questions answered. So I think Zoom is done, should be over.
So I have a hard time understanding when you have in the past said that you are an employee-friendly mayor, but yet you're making it harder for the employees to be at the meetings. Because knowing that there's meetings that run till 9, 10 p.m., and some of our staff live an hour away. So not only do they have to work from 8 in the morning to 4 p.m., they have to drive home just to turn around to come back here. It's very inconvenient for the staff. Another point, I mean, if you look at just the counties, the municipalities around us, yes, they're not doing it, but we've also said in the past that New Windsor wants to be a leader of the municipalities. If we're going to be a leader, this is one way to get into the modern era.
I don't think we're leading if we don't have staff in, I mean, this, to me, this is their responsibility to be in town hall. And we're talking 2 meetings a month, maybe 1 for some. And I think it's better to be able to face people eye to eye, you have the conversation. If something needs to be checked on in town hall, no one's here to do it.
Well, if we're talking, we seem to be talking about the staff and not, okay, no, and not the citizens. But when we hired our staff and interviewed our staff, we said that was one of the stipulations, that we had meetings during the evening, two a month, possibly, maybe some 3, and that was part of our hiring process and part of our interview process. As recently as when we hired Dana, I sat in on those interviews with Gary, and that was part of our, would you be able to handle coming into evening meetings? So it was not a surprise. I realized that Zoom made it easy. And maybe even benefited some of us who were away on vacation occasionally and were able to, tune into a meeting. But I do have to say that the Zoom meeting, it's not as professional as I think we want to further ourselves that way. And if it's just for the benefit, we're really talking the benefit of the staff, I really think the staff were already on notice that meetings were part of their employment.
Staff was one part. There's also residents. There is residents that connect onto the Zoom every meeting. We have between 1 to 8 a meeting. Right now we currently have 1. It is a benefit to the residents as well. If they ever wanted to say anything, it is easy to speak through there. I'm not sure how it would be less professional if we just had here go on to Facebook and watch it versus here you can interact through Zoom and watch it.
Is it playing live on YouTube as well? Is it later on YouTube?
So it's live and recorded on YouTube, Facebook, and then CMC TV.
Because I just know this from something that was going on with my work with the state, that there was a commission meeting and it's on YouTube, and you can see people commenting. Now nobody's monitoring it just because of the nature of this particular commission. I wondered if there would be a way for us to do that.
So there is no commenting or monitoring.
Is that just because it's turned off?
I believe so.
Well, have we had a lot of feedback from residents when, as through the Zooms over the past year and a half? Have they interacted much?
We've had a lot of connections. We usually don't offer much feedback. I think the past year we've had maybe 1 meeting where somebody actually did say something through it.
Right. Now you say connection, that means.
So we have people watching.
Well, then they could do that with CMC.
Right. Yeah, I'm talking about, are they really asking questions on Zoom in the time of the meeting that we are answering?
We do have some. Well, we do have some that do on chat. They'll let me know if there's any issues, so I will respond to that. Or if there is.
And why are you responding?
They're usually talking about audio-visual. They're usually talking about audio-visual problems. Because I watch it sometimes too.
Yeah. So whenever there's an audio, I'll respond and try to say like, is this working?
Well, wouldn't that isn't the system we just got supposed to eliminate the audio-visual problems?
So that just is a feed. So it'll record. Now in the past, if you remember, I think it was like 4 years ago, where it would be 1 meeting a quarter. They'd put the microphones out and they do that. This is basically the same thing. It's just all the time, and eventually, yes, once we get the part that's left, we'll get all the cords off of the floor. So they'll go straight to the wall. But without Zoom, you basically just get broadcast and recording. You won't really have, I mean, I can stream something to the TV for people in here. But
You're talking about the documents.
the documents, or if there's a photo that you want me to throw up there or something like that, I can do that without Zoom. Currently, it's in Zoom, so anybody remote can see them as well. But if that was not offered, it would just be for the
So if we weren't using Zoom, you could put the agenda up there, or you could put the manager's report up there.
I could still put the documents. It just wouldn't be anybody remote wouldn't see it. So even the people watching on YouTube, Facebook, or even CMC will not be able to see any of the documents.
I wonder if there's another
They
way
can't
around
see it.
that.
They can't see it from here.
No, what you would have to do is CMC would have to point their camera at the screen, but the way the glare goes off of the lights, it wouldn't be a great
So I've seen other municipal meetings, and I know I'm stating the obvious here. I think that COVID has affected this in a way because we've gotten so comfortable with everybody being remote. And I'm pretty much old school when it comes to that. I like seeing everybody on the dais there for the scheduled meeting. And I do see that there is a benefit. When I traveled, being able to Zoom in was good. In cases where that would happen before for like business, if I travel, I guess I would just miss the meeting, although I'd hate to do that. But there was a benefit with having Zoom. The challenge is, though, I feel like there's got to be a way that we can display documents without Zoom. And I also, this is old school and probably not popular, but I also think that this is, in my mind, it's almost like a like a contract. Like we're making it possible for citizens to have access to our meetings. But I think there's another side of that. I think it's a two-way street is what I'm trying to say. I think a lot of times people jump on Zoom and then there's really no engagement. I would love to see people here. Occasionally we get residents, generally older residents from the reserves that come here, but really nobody ever comes. And I think that's sometimes we make things so easy that people don't come. And I'd like to see more people here at these meetings,
So that's going to be a hard thing for a lot of the younger population, because if you're home trying to get your kids ready for bed and say, oh, well, just come to a 2-hour meeting at 7 p.m. and leave your kids at home.
See, but I think that's the problem. I think that's why we don't have people, we're going to get in a long discussion. I don't want to do that.
But I think that we eliminated, the only thing I think that we're gonna lose with Zoom is somebody could send something in the chat. We eliminated that problem when we paid, I don't remember how much, but it was a couple of $1,000s, I think, for this system, so that we could be sitting right here, and if I'm at home, I can be watching you on my phone, I can be watching you on my computer, I can be watching you on my tablet, I can say I don't have time because the kids are cranky, and I know what you mean. When my kids were little, I couldn't get to these meetings either, but I can watch it later, and if I have a question about something, and we can even add that to the stuff that Neil says. If you have a question, contact us at da-da-da-da-da. We could add that to every meeting, but, and if we want to be more I agree with everything everybody said, but I also like the idea of being more employee-friendly, so maybe we can do some, I know when I have to work at night, which I do sometimes, I come in later. So I don't go back home and come back for my meeting. There's other ways we could address that, but, if we had 50 people on every single time, all sending stuff into the chat with a million questions, I could justify it, but I can't justify spending $150 a month on something after we just spent a few $1,000s putting in this system.
Is that what it is?
It's
What?
Didn't you say it was
$140 a year.
$12.42?
Okay, well, whatever, I'm sorry.
That's
I had the amount
1,000.
wrong. I just don't know, I guess more of my concern is I thought we were moving to something else, I didn't think we were doing both. And I'm not convinced yet that we need to do both.
So without both, with the staff and residents aside, the thing that you will lose is the documents for streaming. The way CMC handles it right now is they tie into the Zoom connection, and then they are able to, like, I share my screen to Zoom, so then they can grab that and post it right on, so when you're watching TV, you see my screen, the agenda.
Seems like CMC ought to be able to.
I was gonna like to ask CMC if there's another way to do that.
The way most, like, without CMC, the way most people would do it is Zoom has integrations where you could, straight from Zoom, send it to Facebook, send it to Twitter, send it to,
Right, but if
stream
the,
it live.
If the other towns are not using Zoom, if that's, completely.
Correct.
What are they, so nobody else is ever showing their agenda or any
So
documents?
what you see from home is the discussion. So you'll see somebody talking, but when they're talking about a document or showing a picture or something, you might be able to see a zoomed in image of the TV. It's not as great as actually seeing the full, I mean, it's like seeing a reflection of an image versus actually just posting it.
But there has to be a way because county government does it.
County government also has a paid service and a paid staff that do this.
It
for
takes
an
over the
actual job.
camera basically and puts it up there or something like that.
They have a whole mixing and stuff. They mix the audio.
Yeah, it's basically, it's actually a production is what you're saying.
It's, yeah.
Councilman Hall, is there anything, can we talk to Richard about that and see if there's a way? Because I certainly think having the ability to see the documents is a plus, because that is one level of access that I think, whether we value it or not, I think it's good that citizens should be able to see a document that we're talking about, that we're sharing.
Yeah,
Well,
So,
they're all public record, so
Right.
why can't we put them out with the agenda?
Yeah,
You could do that too.
No.
Well,
That they-
it probably wouldn't be preferred.
why?
Because you would want the resident to put in a Public Information Act request, I would assume, to get documents. And because
If you want to require that.
because there's some
if you-
documents that are just internal notes and stuff.
But they're not going to be up there,
Sometimes they
are they?
Are they?
It depends on if
Sure,
I
somebody.
mean, I thought what was
What would be the
usually up
difference?
there was maybe Gary's report, like, for
My
example,
report.
when he's not here.
Sometimes they, they ask me to put their report up to see a section of it or a photo
I
or.
don't have anything, I mean, I never.
I
have
mean, it's
anything.
not anything to hide.
You just have to have it like a day or two before.
Yeah.
Instead of like me, I give it to him 5 minutes before 7.
Somewhat less time than that. What I don't know, I know that there's some sort of magical Dropbox where everything goes for you folks that
Right.
Yeah, we
I
have a
don't,
file.
I don't
a
get.
folder.
Um,
Yeah, we have a folder.
I mean,
But
if it
is it
was.
possible, is it possible for those things to somehow be posted into the Facebook page or that, so
You
that
Or on the website.
when someone was watching on whatever the CMC production is, or through the new system, they could theoretically also have access to those documents through a different way. I don't, I am
I would recommend the
untechnical.
town talk to the website people about that, because just to go down a path that we don't need to go down to tonight, you can't put a PDF on Facebook, you can only put an image. So images are not accessible to people who are using screen readers, and we're the government, so we're supposed to be having it accessible, but a PDF is. So if we have a folder on the website that says town work session for December 19th documents, somebody can just go into it and look at it while we're talking. I mean, it's a little bit more work for you guys, but I mean.
You would
we're
basically.
supposed to have our stuff all in the folder ahead of time anyway, so.
That mayor council folder, what you would do is you would make a link that's shareable, and then you would have to post it and say, here, click this link, it downloads the 5-10 documents that are in that folder. Now, we would have to make sure that folder has just the information.
Just that stuff in.
Right.
Because the only concern there would be is if you have draft
Yeah,
things.
you'd need to make sure
It's a
that
little
what
bit
you
more
were
administrative
releasing was
management, yeah.
meant to be released, or at least at that point.
Now, for the CMC part, though, to actually get Richard involved and to purchase some technology that would be able to do that, to share directly to their feeds, and then they can tie in and stuff. I'm sure it's doable. I'm not sure if it's cost effective, because we're talking 150 a year versus what we found out with
Right.
this 11,000 for microphones and a couple cameras. That the cameras the CMC paid for, that is leasing to us for free.
Right.
So basically, it was 11,000 for just
Plus,
the microphones and the actual wiring and things that go behind the scenes. So I mean, to add some technology for that, I mean,
I was just
ballpark at
curious.
least 1,000
Doesn't
maybe.
hurt to ask, but if we can
Yeah,
just
sure.
solve the problem by putting stuff online. I mean, I agree, I've had feedback from people who have been here, some of the older folks who used to come before we had anything on the screen, and they say it's helpful to see what y'all are talking about. So I think that's true. So let's find a way to make that happen.
If they're here, you're saying it's helpful for them to see it on the monitors, or you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, people have said, like, when we were doing the budget,
Yeah.
it's nice that I could actually see what you're talking about. you
Yeah.
know? But if we can put it on the on the website, you know, and you can, I mean, Kalina probably knows how to do this, but you can do things like put a watermark that says draft, you know,
Yeah,
so that we do that with the budget, so, and then you save everything's a PDF. You know, we're not
Right.
having Word and Excel documents out on the website, you know, so, you know, because that locks it basically unless somebody has really sophisticated software, so.
Nobody sees any issue with it being on the website prior to our meetings? Or discussion?
It's on, so the way I would envision it, it would be a link that would go to the SharePoint, so you don't have to worry with the website adding extra storage or anything for all these documents that we would put on there. It would all be handled in SharePoint. I don't.
So you're, Mr. Mayor, you're talking about content more than
Right.
anything, yeah. So the only thing that I would say is, obviously, we wouldn't put like a proposed,
Nothing personnel related.
yeah, nothing
Right.
personnel, nothing proposed,
Legal documents.
It wouldn't be a document with some proposals of things that we want to do, because I don't know that would be beneficial to the community to see if we're just still in, like the document today about the rental properties. Would that be something that wouldn't be something that we would
Currently,
share?
that is in the folder, so we would
Yeah.
just have to we would have to set some criteria of what is public and what is not, maybe a different
Yeah.
folder, that
Well,
this is a public
I mean,
folder.
ultimately, it will be public, but I'm thinking that when it's in the process of us working through that's not something that you
Well,
would
you
share.
put a watercolor draft,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so that
I'm
it's
just
not.
trying to grab for
It-
things that we wouldn't put out there.
So to your point, I do see there is a benefit to not releasing it before you have the discussion.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where we get into this area of if Kalina's going to put it up, she's going to put it up a day in advance.
So let's have a folder that's
And
separate. That's
so you
just
don't
for
want to put, you
publicized documents or something
you
like
can put,
that.
yeah, because if we put something up there on the screen and, it spreads throughout town, oh, they're doing this horrible thing, and then we sit down and we're like, no, that's not what we're talking about. We're
Right.
talking about this.
Yeah.
That's
like-
what I'm saying, whether or not we should do it before the meeting, or whether you can time it at 7 o'clock or something, I don't know.
I don't even really understand any of this conversation.
You couldn't do
Oh, I
that.
think
You'd have to be sitting with the website open to actually do that. That's the
Yeah,
only way
for
you
the
could do
website.
that.
I think anything that will be shareable in the meeting can be determined prior to the meeting. It'll be documents that we know we're discussing.
Yeah, but who's gonna make that decision?
You could do it after the meeting too. I mean, not to make it a big discussion, I'm just saying, you could say after the meeting, it'll be released within 12 hours.
Or
You could do that if that's the way.
Or check with Richard and see what magic he can work.
yeah.
Doesn't hurt to ask.
And I mean, to address the elephant in the room with the time, certainly to your point about being employee friendly, and we did say that, that's part of the response. And it's easy for me, my commute is a minute and a half from my house, but So I certainly understand it if you got kids and you're trying to manage all of that and get back and forth. Are we okay with the adjusted hours for that day? Like if you know Monday and Wednesday are the day, are we okay with the, maybe come in at 11?
That's
Comp time.
well, that's extremely hard because you got, the office opens at 9. So somebody's gonna have to be here to open at 9. And then you got people like Wayne who he can't just say, oh, well, I'm gonna let the water go until 11 today.
Yeah, I get it.
So, especially for people like Wayne who works probably 24/7, it's nice to not have to come in late at night where he can just adjust. He could listen in, do his work, and then when the meeting's over, climb in bed or whatever it may be.
Well, hold on. Well, so here's the thing. It would also, this is no way disputing that Wayne works hard. I absolutely know that he does. But I'd like to see him and talk face to face about stuff. Because I never get a chance to, and I don't, so I say, and not that he's making it different, this isn't an issue with Wayne. I'm just saying, again, I'm kind of old school about these meetings where it's like, it'd be good to have the full array of staff to have discussions, and maybe it's one meeting one meeting a quarter, or I think there's ways that we can work together to try and accommodate people's personal lives and hardships of, extended work hours. Because I get it, that we're running the devil out of the guys, so I get that. But again, when we're making appropriations for departmental funds and stuff like that, it would be good to have everybody here to discuss it. Because I'll tell you, I told you directly, I put my foot in my mouth about some things that I just simply don't know, but that's because I don't know. You talk to Wayne a lot more than I do. But for me to make an informed decision, I kind of have to hear what we're talking about other than just, documents. Because there's some things that I just don't know that hearing it directly from him would benefit me personally. It's not all about Kevin, but it's just my point that,
But is there any problem with having somebody speak remote versus in person?
It's not that it's a problem. It's that I think when we're making appropriations for a department, it would be good if the town could see the person that's running the department.
So what do we do with the other meetings that aren't appropriation based?
That's why I said, I think there could be, I'm a flexible guy. I think there's ways that we can work together on it.
But this isn't like rocket science. Every municipality has staff at their meetings. And, it kind of bothers me that you say I say employee, that I'm not making it employee friendly. These are responsibilities, as Councilman Huffman said, when they were hired. So I don't think having people come to the meetings has anything to do with employee friendly.
It puts a burden on their home life for sure. Because now people are required to either stay late, work extra, or drive all the way home, come all the way back for a meeting that may be 30 minutes, maybe 3 hours. You just don't know.
We can do flex time, and it's not that Wayne can't come in till 11. He could take off 2 hours early one day when there's nothing going on. Within a 2-week period, I'm sure that's available. Now, years ago, when Frank was here, there was talk about passing a federal law that wouldn't allow you to do flex hours. Well, I don't think that ever passed. So we cut that out for a while, but I don't see why we can't incorporate that. And that would be, to me, employee friendly. When you come in for a meeting, then you can either come in late, come in 2 hours late for the day of the meeting,
Go Go home early another
go
day.
home early or come in, you know, get your 8 hours in, however. I mean, say, right now, somebody could come in at 12 o'clock. Not every day, not every person, but, you know.
The other thing, I don't want to make this about Wayne. I mean, because,
No.
Wayne.
It's not Wayne.
Not about
But I mean,
anybody.
I feel
I
uncomfortable.
just use an example.
No, but I feel uncomfortable about that because it makes it sound like we're talking about Wayne. Because my comments have nothing to do with Wayne. They're all about, again, you know, when we're talking about full disclosure with citizens and residents, you know, I just think it's a better look. Here's the thing: I apparently can't have both of what I want. I'd love a house full of people. I get excited when citizens come out because it shows that they care about their town. You know, we certainly hear enough about what we're not doing, and certainly how much we're making, like we're, you know, robbing a bank or something like that. So, you know, I'd love to see people sitting in these seats interacting with us. If I can't have that, and again, it's not about me, if we can't have that, I would certainly think that we should have the full staff, I mean, everyone, because when those meetings, the ones that I've seen, and I'm talking in other states, everybody's there, and even if there's a packed house or 3 people in the seats, you're hearing from every individual elected official or appointed otherwise. And I think it's just a better appearance for the town than it would be with Zoom. I've never really been a big fan of Zoom because, you know, it's not a bad thing. It's just, I think the engagement level is different with Zoom than it is with when you're in person. That's just my opinion. I may be dead wrong, but, you know.
With COVID, it was great, but it gave us an opportunity to have meetings. But now that that's over, I agree with you that I think it's a better run meeting with everybody here.
I think there's a way if that's the issue, certainly Zoom doesn't cost any. It's $150 a year. So that's not the issue. I think it's more about, it sounds to me like it's more about convenience for staff, including us, and convenience for staff. And I think there's room to work through that. So I thought when we got our audio visual that we were going to do away with Zoom, and that it would be user friendly for the citizens to be able to watch it at any time that they'd like. And the only hurdle there would be to get questions in a timely manner for a citizen to make a comment. But there was a day, and I know you know this, and everybody elected here, where there was a microphone and folks that had questions got up and said anything. We haven't had anybody, well, we have, but it's rare, you know, so.
Well, I think one of the things that makes Zoom seem a little less professional is that a lot of times when people are on Zoom, they turn their camera off, and it seems like their level of engagement is less. And I think, you know, I know as a teacher, when I taught on Zoom and half the class had their cameras turned off, it was incredibly frustrating. You don't know if they're there or not. And I think that that's part of the issue with Zoom not being as professional as having people in person, is that you don't always know what the level of engagement of the people on Zoom is. You know, that's just the way I look at it from my
The
experience.
level of engagement of people on Zoom has nothing to do with why we offer Zoom.
It does if those people are staff members.
Yeah. If they're staff members.
Are you questioning
And you
the-
have to
the-
say,
The
well,
level of engagement of the staff members on
No,
Zoom?
I'm just saying how, she's talking about how
I'm
it
talking the
looks.
impression that it
Talking
gives.
about optics. She's not talking about whether or not we think our staff are.
Yeah, this isn't about
I'm not-
it's not about
I don't really want
commitment.
this to be an argument about whether or not we're
Stay up.
employer friendly. I think we're very employer friendly, and I think that the
But the
purpose of
employees
these.
are asking
But the
for
purpose
Zoom.
of this meeting is for the residents. It's not for the employees.
Who's asking for Zoom?
The staff members have benefited by Zoom.
They ask you to,
No, I'm just saying
this is
that
first heard from me
this has
that-
been a huge benefit to staff members. And we were told at the beginning of this meeting that Zoom is dead, although we did pay this until May.
No,
You
he
can always
didn't.
cancel it.
No, you cannot.
Well, then
It's
you're
paid.
out.
It's paid from May to May.
Well, I know what
It's a
comment
yearly fee.
I know what comment you're referencing, but I don't think we were, I know what comment you're referencing. I don't think it was a mandate. I think it was just an opinion about it, and I get it. I know.
Well, that's what the discussion's for. Are we
Yeah.
going to continue it or not?
No, but I mean, I don't think we made a decision that it was dead or not. I think that's what we're discussing it, right? But, I mean, there's certainly there's certainly benefits to it, but I think there's an opportunity, you know, I don't know.
I guess I'm a bit confused, Will. It sounds like there is, that the staff, our town staff, has come to someone and said, we want to make sure that there's Zoom because it benefits us?
No, I'm just
Okay.
saying that I've noticed that the staff members have benefited greatly.
Okay, sure, and so have maybe citizens that sit at home and want to watch it at their convenience. And so our new system will allow that to continue. However, we all benefited from some Zoom, the town council and mayor during COVID, because we were able to continue to meet, okay? But whenever we decided to come back, the staff should have come back as well. And I will go back and say a second time, when we hired the staff, that was part of their job description, was to come to these meetings. The fact that they benefited for 2.5 years or 2 years that we did that was great, but it sounds like that time has come and is gone, that our staff needs to be back at our meetings. However, we did hear that there was a large benefit for our citizens who could continue to see and we have addressed that, and we are continuing that. So unless there is, it was first heard for me if there's a staff issue of them not wanting to come back.
It's not
Okay.
not wanting to come back. It's the inconvenience to our staff. I'm trying to make it as easy as can be for our staff. Having made the audio visual so much better than what it was a year ago, I don't see any problem with them being able to communicate remotely, especially, for instance, what was brought up earlier, when you go on vacation, you don't have to miss a meeting, 2 meetings. You can still remote in and join, give some feedback. I know I've done it before. Anybody, if you get sick, you can always remote in. There's a benefit, not just staff. There's benefit to the council as well. Sure.
I'm not disagreeing with that, but I guess that if we're going to entertain keeping Zoom because it benefits primarily, because I'm not hearing any other argument as large. It's because, yes, the once in a while somebody comments, but if we're really going to say we're doing it to benefit the staff, then we need to look at whether or not we want to start rewriting job descriptions, because it is in the job description. So, I mean, it's getting late. I don't know how much longer we want. We obviously don't agree about this. I was just kind of floored, because I thought when we spent all this money, that was the end of Zoom. I thought Zoom was something we were doing until we got something better. And I'm perfectly fine with letting people flex their hours, but, it was, almost everybody that's on Zoom came to these meetings ahead of time. So I feel like we all need to think about this a little bit and maybe come back and talk about it again. That's just my opinion on what everybody else
All right,
thinks.
we'll check with Richard.
Oh,
see
I
what
can
he
check
come
it
up with. And even if there's go ahead.
Can I ask a couple questions and put some comments in, please?
Sure.
If we're going to post, if we do away with Zoom, and we're going to post documents to whatever, a share link or whatever, why does it have to be PDF, and why does it have to be days in advance? I can tell you right now, my preparation as town manager on these meetings, whether they're work sessions or council meetings, is days of work putting it together. And my report is typically not ready until that day of, usually around noon. So, I mean, I know I signed on for it. If the Zoom is not an option, that's fine. You know, it is what it is. I don't know does it have to be PDF to do that or
It
what?
wouldn't, it could, I mean, it could be before, after, during that, there was just things floating around.
As long as it's in a folder that's like the unofficial, because if it's not a PDF, then somebody else could conceivably copy it and change it and, you know, so, but it doesn't have to.
What I was saying about with my report, a lot of times I'm done by 6 o'clock meeting night, and then I send it to Will, which I would have to do it earlier. I wasn't commenting about anybody else. That was just me making it easier for Will or whoever. So, and we didn't put anything in concrete about what documents would even be visible, because as Will said, you don't want something out there 2 days in advance and say, well, you know, everything gets blown out of proportion. So that was a good point that he made. So these were just discussion items, but on the timely, I was pointing the finger at myself for not, you know, I mean, it's not a big deal for Will to put it on, but it would be nice if he probably had a couple days just for my report. My report is going to be what it is. It's not really up for discussion, but that's a totally different thing than some town business that we might have to address.
Right. I think trying to having another layer of deciding what can and can and shouldn't go on get posted is just another level of stuff we got to do. So.
Well, I don't think anybody really wants to take that on. If you eliminate one thing.
I'm going to take it.
I think we're in agreement.
What I'm saying is, if you do for this month and not for next month, somebody's going to want to know why you did it that month, or why you did it for Councilman Huffman and not Councilman Cornick or something, you know. So I don't think it should be down to any one person really deciding what gets out there, what doesn't get out there. It just puts that person in a tough situation, maybe.
Yeah, and it could even be something that we posted them after the meeting.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you really want to see it, come to the meeting, you know, I mean, it could even be something, Gary, this is not about how hard you all work. There's nobody in this room
No.
doesn't appreciate everything all of you do and how hard you work. It's just, you know, we have some differences of opinion, and I think that we've all been given a lot to think about tonight, so.
And you know, full disclosure, the reason why I put it on the meeting was because on Zoom it was reporting to us that we had 15 days left of our payment file.
Yeah.
When we called and we got it was the town card had 15 days left on it. That's when they informed me that there was full till May. So it's not a pressing matter. It's just something I wanted to bring up because I know there was discussions. If it was going to continue or not, it probably should be brought up.
And if you check with Richard, there's got to be a decent.
I'm sure, and I'll get a quote of
I can't believe it's outrageous.
what it would be.
You know, probably maybe a one-time fee or something, but I'm not that IT savvy.
Let's get some more information, and let's all think about everything.
Gary, anything else, sir?
He's got a couple of things.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
All right.
Thanks.
All right.
Okay.
The other was just to bring up under my notes was our new Public Works employee. Tyler Yingling is the new Public Works employee. Tyler started December 14th as the utility and Public Works maintenance assistant. And the main function of this new position is to assist Director Myers on the water and sewer side, but the position will also have a Public Works function. And to start, the position will be a 50-50 split between general fund and enterprise fund. We can change that as things go along, but starting off will be 50-50. So if you see a new face out and about, introduce yourself and welcome Tyler to New Windsor. At some point in the near future, I'll have talk with Tyler about attending a council meeting so the mayor and council can meet him. So
Now, do we snowplow training from the county?
no.
No, just hands-on, huh?
Yeah. Well,
That's how I learned. Okay. All right.
Don't hit that pole.
Learn the first manhole cover he hits. And then you're still hiring one more, correct?
We're gonna re-advertise for that at the beginning of the year. We interviewed 3 or 4 people both twice, and Tyler was actually one of those, but he was more qualified for this position, and it just wasn't the folks that we did interview. Like I said, twice, the interview committee didn't feel was a good fit, so we're going to re-advertise that at the beginning of the year.
Just there's pros and cons to this philosophy, but whether or not if you had like a pool of, let's just say, retirees or career firefighters that might be willing to go on to a list of potential part-time employees when you needed them, so that we're not shorthanded. I'm just throwing that out there. I'm not saying we have to, but if we had a list of like 4 or 6 and somebody leaves, maybe they at least could mow or get behind a snowplow. I know we had Felix Hill at one time. He did part-time work for us when he was still working at the Brotherton Service Center, just so that if basically so the guys aren't overworked when somebody leaves. Just an idea.
Okay.
So
All right.
I know there's pros and cons to it, but I know a lot of career firefighters always looking for a part-time job on their time off. So just to have maybe somebody, like I said, to get behind a snowplow or help out with mowing or just helping little stuff. So just an idea, not that we have to do it. Anything else, sir?
No, that's it for me.
All right, thank you, sir. Anybody else? Two things, since I wasn't here November of 21, did the town recognize the business for their years of service?
No.
No? Does anybody have a problem if we do that again? Recognize the businesses? I'd like to try to get that list. I'll work with you, Kalina.
I have to. I actually looked at it the other day.
Yeah.
I can't remember who.
I think I did a couple months ago. And usually I do it in November when we have the government work for MML, but I thought maybe we would do that in January.
Yeah.
And do it for 2 years. So anybody have any objection to that?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure what the,
Every year, well, I don't know when I started. Oh, early, maybe 2009, 10, something like that. I got a list, probably from Donna at that time. When did you start?
Oh my gosh, 7 years ago.
7, okay. So it was before that. And in November, I also had our town council shadow meetings, where every council member, the mayor, town staff had a 8th grader shadow them during the meeting. And everybody had a script for them to read. They ran the meetings, they make the motions, the seconds, that sort of thing. It was pretty cool for November when it's government works for MML. And then we always had that over at the community meeting room. And then I started doing 5-year, 10-year. Of course, there was quite a few the first year that had never been recognized, but it's for 5 years, 10 years. Hartzler's is like coming up on 80. And Garber's, if you go out there, they have their plaque up. I think it's very meaningful to them to be recognized by the town for their years of service here. And we usually invite them in, where you probably get maybe 50%.
Yeah, just about, yeah.
Yeah, 50%.
We have a couple of new businesses that probably.
Yeah, but I mean, they
Be nice.
haven't gotten their 5
Yeah,
years.
exactly.
But,
Yeah, exactly.
But recognize them for their years of service every 5-year increments, and give them a nice little plaque. And
Did you do the 1 year as well?
I never did 1 year.
I was gonna say, because there's a
It's
couple
5
new
years.
businesses.
If we could just invite some to just recognize them as being.
Usually with a new business, we
Yeah, we have
usually
that.
let them have the floor, say, hey, welcome to Windsor, because I remember when Police and Mo's came, they had the floor, and they ripped another municipality up one side, down the other. I really wasn't looking for that, but they said that, New Windsor was really great to be in,
This
so.
other place was.
So, I'll get that done, and then also, I don't know if anybody has looked at Governor Hogan's recommended budget for next year. New Windsor has a $500,000 figure next to it, so.
Let's hope.
That originally was for streetscape, and whether or not we get it, I'm going to be writing a letter to the governor-elect saying that we hope, I know Hampstead's, they got $2 million for their new fire hall in it. There's 3 fire halls, I think, and there's other municipalities, I think I don't know, it's somebody's sewer system, I can't remember now. But anyway, take a look at it. It's only a recommendation, so it doesn't mean it's going to go anywhere, but you got to start somewhere, and hopefully that was for state highway to get more funding. Normally, road projects like this don't go in the general budget, so it might be the first thing that, but at least I'll have his attention that it's in there.
Right.
He's already reached out to Senator Reedy, so, and Streetscape is on all the delegations and even some of our commissioners' radar now, so we'll see what happens. So hopefully we could say to State Highway, here's $500,000 to close the gap a little bit. What can you guys do? And if they say no and we get the $500,000, then we got more street money.
Find something to do with it.
$1,000.
Yep,
Yeah.
that's right.
Gary, could you find something to do with $500,000?
Can't hear you, Gary.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry.
Okay.
I was writing notes.
All right. All right. That's it. Everybody have a great holiday. Happy Hanukkah and Merry Christmas.
New Year.
Hopefully it's a safe new year. Thank you. It's been a challenge this past year, but I'm starting to get my passion, my fire back a little bit, especially with going after money. And
Good at that.
Kevin and I were at a function last week, and the library headquarters is here in New Windsor, but it seems like we don't really get a whole lot of benefit for storytelling, that sort of thing.
No.
So they have a program, it's trail stories, where I guess there's little podiums or something with stories, and you walk your child, and then you stop and read part of the story, and then another walk. And I said, well, we have a butterfly trail. Oh, good idea. And then I said, what about little stories, little gatherings? And I said, we got this. And she actually had said something about the Fountain Park. I said, well, that'd be a great place to have a little storytelling.
Absolutely.
So we'll see what happens next year. So little things, I think, like that, you see other towns are doing stuff for kids and whoever. So, we got to start.
I talked to.
Another place we have is the little library place, where they tore down the building right next to right between the church and our house. They have the lending library right there, the little library.
Mm-hmm.
And there's benches there and everything. They could even do like a little reading thing there if you
Yeah.
want.
Yeah, they approached me, I don't know how many years ago, and I put that up there, so, and I see people going there, so.
Yeah, people are there all the time.
Yeah, and the 2 benches are, one for, two
Bixler.
memory, honor the former mayor and a former churchgoer, so. But if you think of things like that, you hear things that other towns are doing, we can't do everything, but that's a little start. Do something for the kids.
Yeah, we've got a lot more kids with our new development, so.
All righty. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
I'll make that motion.
All All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. So carried.